So I'm trying something new. What I'm trying to do is let's see if this works. I put this as a link in Patreon, and we're streaming it to the YouTube channel as an unlisted. So really
Oh, smart.
only
That way it'll be easier to like upload too. That's smart. I don't know why we didn't do that to begin with.
because I overcomplicate everything.
It's okay.
Watch this video on
That's a
YouTube.
little bit of a bummer. Like nobody showed up. in
Yeah,
this.
I know.
I'm guessing it'll get. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. I don't know.
It might have been that I mentioned it so late. I should have. I don't know. We gotta like plug them early in the day or something.
Yeah, I don't know, something like that.
But I do feel like I don't know. I mean, I am like thinking they're fun to do. I'm enjoying it. I don't know if you still are, but I am.
Yeah.
And I kind of think with this kind of thing, if we're consistent with it, eventually it's gonna. I don't know. I do think we might actually get followers, but I like it. I like the format. It forces me to read books, which I like.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, seriously, recently I was like, I am not interested. I mean, I've just been beat up and tired.
Yeah.
But I was able to sit down and read this book, and it was great.
Yeah, it's fun to like.
So.
I think the format of it kind of makes us. I don't know. Might give us the steam to like be consistent enough to make it potentially work.
Yeah. So I'll show you the thing. So let me zoom in on this. Zoom. There we go. So these are my notes of somebody flipping their pen around.
Wow.
Rotate it. For some reason.
Dude, that's actual animation there, Cory.
I know. Well, it's actual tracing over a video of me flipping my hand around, flipping a pen around.
Still seems like a beast to do.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you look at the number of panels down here, I'll show you. So yeah, each one of these is a drawing. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out like how the pen changes from being in front of or behind different fingers at different times, and that's the challenge. So I have green is the thumb, and then if the fingers are in front of the pen, they're red, and if they're behind the pen, they're blue.
Wow.
So anyway, and the idea is each time it flips, it's going to change it. And so initially, I think I'm going to have a skull pull a Wacom stylus out of his mouth and then flip it. And then the first time he flips it, his hand is going to turn into like skin, and then he'll flip it again, and then there'll be changes. And so each time he flips it, like it's going to like kind of rotate through a few different monster kind of skins or whatever. And then he starts drawing, and then you see that he's drawing the first frame, which is the skull, whatever. So
that's really cool.
Yeah. Anyway, it'll be kind of fun, but this is not what I want to end up doing. This is just kind of the under drawing, basically. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out like how many versions of the index finger do I need to draw? Like, because if I can get away with like just moving the index finger a little bit, which I think I can, then I just have to draw it once for each change.
Yeah.
And, or maybe twice for each change as I'm looking through this.
So each time it flips through, it's going to like warp into a different hand.
Yeah, right.
I like that.
I don't want to draw like, hundreds of different fingers when I can just draw like dozens instead. So that's kind of the hope is if I can get this, like these two knuckles on this finger, if I just draw those once for each hand, I can just move them and then parent everything to that layer.
Yeah.
And that'll be kind of So I don't know. We'll see if it works.
Well, dude, that makes a lot of sense. Like, because I know you've had like a rough week and stuff, but that actually makes a lot of sense why you've had a rough week. Because not only have you had like physical crap come up, but it's like on top of it to be like handling the amount of animations you're doing. It's kind of that's unbelievable.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you the. I'll show you the most recent version of this. I gotta save that somewhere real quick. I will name that later. Yeah, so this is, I think you've seen most of this, but you haven't seen some of the end here. It's going to play in my ears. There we go. Fit. So this is the animatic.
Oh, nice. Oh, I know this is nerdy, and you probably already know this from working in music. But do not show like a trademarked headstock on a guitar because you could get sued.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, those are some of the new scenes for the thing.
Sweet.
And then I have this pans up to I haven't rendered this, so the music is like slowing down and speeding up. It sounds awful.
Yeah, I absolutely, one of the things I hate about After Effects is the like, I mean, it's cool because like other programs, I think prior when you're like rendering would just not play audio at all. So at least you're getting the, but
right.
I swear I've had to do quite a few video edits for where I work at a day job now. And, you know, because I made the mistake of revealing that that's a skill I have. Right. And so now, of course, I'm joking, but now, of course, that's utilized all the time. But yeah, so whenever I'm rendering something and it's like, it's kind of funny though. It cracks my son up.
Right.
Like sometimes when I've had to do video editing at home, he's just like, can't help but laugh because it's like this. That heart beating thing is insane too.
Oh, have you not seen that yet?
Well, you showed it to me, and you even talked about like, you know, who you might kind of have work on it and stuff. But it's just cool to see. It's just cool to see the full. Like, I think the animatic I saw prior to this didn't have as many of the gaps filled in, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So anyway,
dude, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
You know, like there's been times, and I know we've talked about this before, but it's like there have been times in my life where I get like flooded with stuff. It's one of the reasons, like even right now, like I don't particularly feel like doing these the pitch project thing, even though I'm enjoying it. It's like I really want to just get back to my personal project, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like I've also learned, like at times where you're like you have potential opportunities and you're just kind of overloaded. Like there's also like times in my life where I've been there and then I look back and I made a lot of really cool work and I'm like, how did I even do that? Like, you know, so I kind of suspect you're in one of those times where I think like a year from now, you're going to look back and be like, how did I like, you know, but right now you're probably just like waiting through it, you know? Because it's, it's a crap load of stuff, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's other stuff that hasn't hit yet that it's like in the wings, but
so Invincible, it's funny from watching the cartoon.
Yeah.
I do remember I did read.
Should we give a spoiler alert?
Yeah, yeah. So
if you haven't read Invincible or watched the cartoon, especially episode 1, we're about to spoil that huge. So
yeah, and I would actually say usually I'm not a person who really cares about spoilers myself, but in this case, yeah, if you have, especially if you haven't seen episode 1, don't continue. Go watch it.
Yeah.
Or you know, at least if you're aware of like the big twist. But yeah, so anyhow, Okay. So that being said,
Okay, so
anyone
Invincible,
left
sorry.
has already seen Invincible 1, so we are clear to talk. We're going to
Or
assume.
you've been warned. I'm going to get my book down.
This is also behind a paywall, so it's like basically, to our patrons, go watch Invincible 1. So
yeah, seriously.
But so I remember reading the comic from this. I think I had a friend lend it to me because I actually remember a little bit of the plot beyond where it's at.
Oh, so you saw Omni-Man kill Guardians of the Globe in the comic?
Yeah, from what I recall. So the weird thing is, I was really surprised by it watching it because, like I said, I don't own it. But there's the thing that reminded me that I've read it before was actually the subplot with the girl, the superhero where he cheats.
Adam Eve?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where what's his name? That's voiced by
Rexplode.
Yeah, and then the comedian.
He's voiced by the guy Adrian Pimento from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah. But it's he also, that actor. What's his name? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna blank
I
out
don't
on
even know how to pronounce his last name.
Okay, but anyhow,
I don't want to mess it up. But yeah,
he also is like really commonly goes on Comedy Bang Bang. Does improv with Scott Aukerman, so it's like which makes sense because Brooklyn Nine-Nine is like a lot of those guys. But he's one of the funniest improv and guests on that show as well. So But anyhow, so that's that plot, that subplot. I remember beyond where they've gone with it. And so I was like, oh, okay, I have like read this. Like I wasn't sure if I had read it, but I was like, it really sounds familiar. And then it was like after the big twist where I'm like, oh yeah. Like I read this a long time ago because I remember that being really shocking, but I also remember a twist with that whole subplot too that hasn't.
What do you remember? Because I've read everything, so you're not spoiling anything for me.
Okay, so I might be remembering it wrong, but I thought there was like some subplot where he does end up kind of hooking up with the girl.
Right. So yeah.
But then I think there's like some kind of crazy epic fight like between him and the girls. I'm forgetting all the names, but
Rexplode.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't really turn out well for him. Am I remembering that wrong?
I don't remember the details, but at some point in time, him and Eve get together.
Yes.
And this is after he dates the other girl who isn't superpowered.
Mm-hmm.
And sometime in the future, him and Eve do get together, and then they are being attacked, and her powers are pretty incredible. I mean, she's kind of Green Lantern style powers, right?
Yeah.
Where she can conjure up constructs and things.
Yeah.
But at one point in time, her well, I don't know. I don't know if I want to ruin this. If you probably haven't read that far into the future.
Yeah, I kind of like. It's weird. I kind of do like the fact that I do think I read it. I do think it was a long time ago, and I didn't really keep up with it. And so I'm actually having the advantage of kind of being able to see the whole thing with fresh eyes, and I'm kind of enjoying that part.
Okay, so I won't spoil. I won't spoil that. You had just asked, if that, but yeah. So the Guardians.
I was just trying to say, like, is what I'm saying like off from like what you remember? Because it might have been a different book that maybe I'm confusing with it or something.
No, it's not off.
Okay. Good. Okay.
And they're already planting the seeds for stuff.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. But I mean, they
I'm sorry. I also had forgotten about the subplot of the aliens that just continually. It's got so many. Like the thing I like about Kirkman.
Yeah.
It is
the Flaxans.
The Flaxans that are just continually like they time works differently for them, so they're constantly upgrading and coming up with a new way to try to take over the world.
Right.
And it's just such a great little subplot. That I'm curious if the comic ends up falling in the Kirkman trap that I feel like Walking Dead. I've read. I always wait for the omnibus now.
Uh-huh.
so I've read like the first like 4 big, thick, like omnibus books, you know.
Yeah.
And I think I'm up to date on those, and then I usually wait for. I don't know if I've seen the finale of it though, because I think they closed the door on that comic. But
I never got into Walking Dead.
Yeah, and it's great, like especially at the beginning. But one of the traps I feel like Kirkman fell into, and I don't frankly think I'm much of a better writer. I don't know if I could carry it that long. Was just like this absurd killing off every character to the point where you're just like, I don't even know if this has a point anymore. So it was kind of like, you know, like there's certain characters in Game of Thrones and stories like that kind of start off with like a big shock killing of a character you're really vested in, where it's like, I feel like there's a line to that where after a while, if you continue killing characters that people get invested into, then you like lose the value of the story in general, because like at some point your readers are just going to get really uninvested in all the characters, you know?
Right. That doesn't happen in Invincible.
Okay, that's good. But I do think it's great to me. Like, I mean, the ultra violent thing, it especially considering when this came out, it is super fun. But it's also I just love the fact that there's actual stakes.
Oh yeah,
you know.
Yeah, there's real stakes. I mean, when characters die, they're dead. When they get fat, they stay fat for a while. You know, like there's like actual permanence in this world. I have one of the characters who hasn't showed up yet. I've got the page that Ryan Otley drew of the fight that kills him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's you know, it's pretty cool. I don't know. I mean, Otley's incredible. Cory Walker's great. He's more, in my mind, he's more of a character designer. His inks are almost so minimal that I don't like them much, because he's got just one line weight on everything.
Got it.
Which is fine, and it's good draftsmanship. It's incredible character design and draftsmanship, and composition is great. But I just prefer a little bit more weight in the lines. But
I do dig the style of the animation so far, because it really makes that twist wonderful. Because it's done almost like, you know, Batman the animated series, and that very like DC house cartoon style. And so
and then all of a sudden you see this guy's eyes start bulging out of his head.
Yeah, to have the shock violence in it is just like it's twice as shocking, because it's you know, it's funny too, because the style is so much that style that I know there's like a parental warning on there, but at the same time I told my wife, I was like, I know Ben likes watching superhero stuff, just make sure you don't show him this one.
Right. Yeah. Because there's also swearing and sexual content. But then in addition to that, I almost think, because I was watching it with Aaliyah and I was like, hey, I know you don't like gore. There's gore in this. It's really well done. You know, do you want to give it a shot? So she was like, sure. And during that scene where he's killing everybody, she's like, you know, it's not the visuals that are that bad. It's the sounds. The sounds are worse than the visuals. That's all the squishing. The Foley was incredible in that scene.
Oh, it's so good. Also, it's not like I haven't seen that in animation, right? Because I mean, I've seen Akira, so it's like, okay, Akira, like if you've watched that, you've pretty much seen as much cartoon violence as you can.
Yeah.
But it's just the way the story is structured. I also just think it actually is a really well structured story. He gets you really invested in the characters. It's a little cliche at first, I think intentionally, so that it can turn that cliche. Yeah.
The interesting thing about the whole thing, is that, I mean, he's described it as his love letter to superhero comics.
Yeah.
And they did every trope you can imagine. I mean, like at one point in time, Invincible is replaced with a black guy who's now invincible. There's like uh but there's a like Kirkman writes the entire series, but once at one point in time they just started advertising like the return of Robert Kirkman to Invincible. Like he never left, but they just wanted to like advertise it that way as if, and so
just to play up the trope. I love it.
And so, but they have like, you know, all of, they've got, you start getting into multiple dimensions, you start getting into the like galactic stuff is way bigger than the Earth stuff. And you start, I mean, almost everything that you can imagine is in there, but it's in there. It's cliche and it's a trope. But it's in there in a very unique way that serves the story.
Yeah.
And so it never feels like, oh, now they're doing that. But when you talk about it later or reflect on what's going on, you're like, oh, that's that trope. They're doing that trope here, but it doesn't feel
so
overdone.
That's one of Kirkman's strengths. So I talked about like one of the weaknesses I felt, you know, especially from Walking Dead, you know, which is like his baby, but it's like, one of his biggest strengths though, and what makes The Walking Dead so compelling, at least at the time, now everybody rips it off. Yeah. And it seems like similar with Invincible, because watching that, I'm like, The Boys is very reliant on the existence of Invincible, and I enjoy The Boys a little bit. You know, but it's like it's very like I don't know if it would exist without Invincible. From what I've seen,
it's kind of Invincible.
Although neither would, none of them would exist without Watchmen. So
right.
But I do like, the thing I like about Kirkman is he'll take an absurd premise and just go completely like following it to its, like if that actually happened, what would be some of the logical conclusions? You know, like the Superman scene where he's pretty much just like annihilating an entire planet.
Right.
It kind of logically follows from like the absurd plot line where you're like, yeah, right. I guess that would be kind of how you'd prevent that from happening. That's crazy, but
right.
But it kind of makes sense. Like if you kind of assume the reality of the absurd world. And I think that's one thing he does really well. He did that really well with like, you know, what was always just like a B movie trope of zombies, and just kind of taking it like, yeah, we're going to do the trope. Like it's going to have all the similarities, all the similar stories. Like, you know, they're developing a vaccine, like, you know, like all of the tropes, but it's just going to put it in like a real world where like there's human beings that are selfish and driven by, you know, the same things like people in politics are driven by. And I think that was really impressive. But I do have to say there's something very unique also about just the art style juxtaposed with like such a heavy story. Cause it's like in Watchmen, it's like, it's a very heavy style. Right. And Invincible, it's like, it's this pretty, you know,
very bright colors. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, I feel like I've rambled about it. I want to hear your thoughts on it and stuff. And like, what got you into Invincible, all that.
Chris Oatley and nice. Laura Innes. They were doing a podcast years ago. And they were talking about storytelling. Cause at the time I was studying, I was just consuming everything I could about storytelling. So I saw that they had an episode about storytelling. So I was listening. Nice. That's who turned me on to Invisible Inc. with Brian McDonald and that stuff. But they said, you know, if you want to get into some of the best storytelling out there, read Invincible. And they're like, it's not so far into it that you can't catch up. And I think there's 3, what are these, compendiums? No, collections. So this is the ultimate collection.
Yeah.
So I have 12 of these that makes up the whole,
oh wow,
the whole story. Yeah.
Oh, and they wrapped it then.
It's done. And the nice thing about it, that's the one thing, is he said, Kirkman said, you know, I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with this. And like, he's like, you know, like most creators, I want my creation to get so big that it gets beyond me and that other people take it over, and then I regret turning it over to other people, and I hate the stuff that they're doing with my creations, but I legally can't do anything about it anymore, so I whine about it on social media. He said, but instead of doing that, I talked to Ryan, and he didn't want to do it anymore either, so we decided to end it. so that was the one thing that they said that they did that wasn't a love letter to superhero comics, was we wanted to build this entire universe that people fall in love with and then conclude the story.
Nice.
And so, I mean, there are definite story arcs that wrap. But yeah, it's finished. Ryan Ottley draws Spider-Man now.
That's awesome.
But I mean, he drew every issue after he took over, which I think Cory Walker did maybe the first year.
Yeah.
And so I think Ottley drew it for like 11 years or something.
Oh, wow.
And it is, Ryan Ottley's work in it is phenomenal. I mean, it is incredible stuff. You hear people like Sean Gordon Murphy and Crystal, Sean Crystal, talk about Ryan Ottley in reverence. They're like, he's one of the best working people out there right now.
Yeah.
And he just did this. This is his first paid gig.
Oh, wow.
Because he did some web comic with somebody about a super powered mailman or something. I can't remember what it was. And literally Robert Kirkman just called him and said, hey, do you want to draw this thing? And gave him creator rights. So Ryan Ottley was like, because that's another thing Kirkman does a lot, is the people he collaborates with, he like gives them a huge chunk of the property.
Mm-hmm.
And so
which frankly, should be happening with comics in particular, because if you're going to invest in making a comic for like next to nothing, which a lot of creators, especially image creators, might be doing at the beginning, till they see returns and stuff, it's like that's like, it should work just like indie films, where it's like, a lot of the reason actors will take like a gamble on an indie film is they get points, on the film in its release. So if it's a success, like they actually get a taste of that,
I'm gonna show you this. This is one thing I think the cartoon did really well. This is that whole scene in the comics. Let me. I'm wrapped up in my cords. Hold on. Oh shoot! Piece of crap. Okay, hold on. I've like totally. Okay, I need to fix my studio. I took everything apart, and now nothing is working. What is that even attached to? There we go. All right. Okay, so plug this back in. Put that back up there. Wow, that didn't happen live on the show. So this is that scene, right? So here's a bunch of these guys. They're like, getting.
Wait, I'm seeing like a barcode.
Oh, still?
Yep. Now it's black. There we go.
And now it's rotated. Is it good now?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got all these guys, and they spend all these pages on them getting calls. I love that they turned this guy into a girl, but he has to swallow, he has to barf and swallow this jewel each time. So they spend all this time with all these guys getting, he's like, do I have time to like wash this off? So he swallows that. Anyway, so they get all these calls, and this spread, they're like, hey, are you guys, let me move this up.
Color work is great too. Does he do all the colors himself too, or?
No, he only does pencils. He doesn't even ink it. Wow. And this is Cory Walker. I think Crabtree is the guy who does the colors. That might be the letterer.
Wait, what's his name?
Crabtree. Let me look him up.
Like, what's his first name? Because I had a teacher named
Bill
Crabtree.
Crabtree.
Oh, okay.
Bill Crabtree is the colorist. Yeah.
Huh. It's really pretty.
Yeah. So here they are, and they're like, who called us? And in the cartoon, it goes on for a while. In this, it's like 2 pages and it's over.
Oh wow.
So there's like one panel of him killing each one of them, and then he just says, "I never liked you," and he says the feeling was mutual, and that's it. And that's the end of it. And I was like, wait, what? So then it goes on, and it's just like normal everyday stuff. Here we are. Here's Savage Dragon. Here's a bunch of the Image guys that won't show up in the cartoon because they don't have the movie rights to them. And that's it.
That is a trip.
Anyway, and I love that he fights people like the elephant, who's obviously the Rhino in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Just some of the cast of villains that they have is just cracks me up. Have you only watched episode 1?
No, I watched them all.
Okay.
The first 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I loved the whole premise of like those aliens that were just constantly attacking and reattacking. And then the apocalypse of it and stuff. It's pretty funny. It's good. It's heartfelt too, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. That's
really another thing I like about Kirkman is he writes his characters with so much depth, That's why people get so pissed with Walking Dead, because it's like he writes these really deep characters and then they'll just murder them super quick and you're like, whoa.
Right.
Which again works as a great device, but when you do that to all your characters, yeah. It's kind of like, we can get over that or get into that if we ever do Habibi by Craig Thompson.
Yeah, I like that one. That would be hard to do.
It's just like, I love it. I think it's beautiful, but I also feel like it verges on like not
torture
even for
porn?
Story points. Yeah, like there's points where it's like you didn't even need that for the story.
Yeah.
Whereas
don't know.
like there's stories where like that is the premise, like where it's like, okay, like a horror book or something,
right.
But it's like it just verges on the absurd by the end of it, where you're just like, I don't know, like this doesn't seem like it's for story reasons,
Yeah.
That to me always weirds me out. If you're reading something and you're like, I don't even know if this is a story reason this is happening,
Yeah. Well, anyway, I don't know. So yeah, I liked Invincible.
That's amazing.
Was really good. They are playing. There's like Seance Dog instead of Science Dog. In the comic, it's Science Dog, which is another property that is a Skybound property. But I think the rights are a little bit messed up. Like, there's also a guy, Tech Jacket. And Tech Jacket is another kind of indie comic thing, and he's not going to. I mean, Tech Jacket and Science Dog and a lot of those guys. I mean, you're not going to see, like at one point in time, like Savage Dragon shows up to like fight with them, or whatever, and like there's all these like Image crossovers that are happening in the book. I don't think any of those are going to show up in the comics. But one of my criticisms of the comic is probably something that you might like about the comic is it starts so slow. It's such a boring, slow burn at first.
Yeah.
And they literally took I just put it away, but like it's got to be issues. It's like half an inch of pages before the end of episode 1 where Omni-Man kills everybody.
Yeah. I think that's pretty smart though. Because
for a comic that's coming out monthly, I think it's kind of dangerous.
Well, I think it's pretty smart though, because if you think about it, like for it to be a big twist, and really effective, it almost has to start like it's not going there at all.
Oh, absolutely.
I can imagine. Let's say you're following that monthly and you're getting all into this kid's story, and you're like, hey, this is pretty compelling because it's well written, So it's like, okay, like I care about this kid and his dad, and like, what an interesting story. We're probably going to see him evolve and get his own powers. And then you're like, holy,
Right.
I can imagine he might have lost like half his readers.
Oh, I don't know. I think
But
he probably gained, but
I also think because Kirkman at this point, was this before Walking Dead?
during.
Okay, so people know
2000
Kirkman.
2003.
Yeah, so I guarantee people were probably reading it going, when's that shoe going to drop? Like, because it's Kirkman. Like, it's not just going to be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I love that also he brought in some of the stuff he was doing in Fear Agent, which is really cool, So, wait, he didn't do Fear Agent. That's Tony. Okay, never mind. But it's got some of that like cool, I don't know. I really love the alien subplot.
Yeah. The aliens are played for a gag in the comics for a while. They come back, they don't come back like every 3 days like they do in the cartoon. They just come back every once in a while. And they get slightly better each time. But they continue to like kind of age out. And then much, much later they become significantly important. There's a series of events that happens that kind of brings them into importance, and it's like that becomes cool. But like they weren't a joke in the cartoon, it was like a serious threat.
Yeah, but then again, it was still funny.
Yeah, no, it was.
But you're right, like, yeah, they were, they came in as a much more serious threat. Yes, you're right.
But anyway, it's so there's some changes, but one thing I like about the cartoon is I still felt very invested in the characters.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And it was still like whoa, that's a huge twist. I mean, to the point where my wife is almost like, well, he's got to be being controlled, this can't be, Omni-Man can't really be, and so she's still at this point 3 episodes in thinking,
dude, I have a theory on it and I don't want to know if I'm right.
Okay, I won't tell you yes or no. I just want to know what your theory is.
Okay, so I was just thinking about like the Kirkman way that he's approaching this, right? Where he's like, okay, we're these real characters, right? So here's the thing, like he's basically writing Superman, right?
Yep.
But in his take, it's not like he's the last of those beings.
Right.
And so to me, I would think like, why didn't they make him the last of his beings? Because that's such a huge plot point for Superman, right? Where it's like kryptonite, like or Krypton is like destroyed, or
done. He's got nowhere else to go. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, realistically, like just because he's being sent to protect the Earth, like is he being like is he being sent to protect the Earth or just kind of watch over it? Like, because they also have this like subplot of these aliens that are invading Earth. So I'm like, maybe he's just a bad actor. Like maybe he's just not there for like, I don't know. That's my take on it. I think he might have just, maybe he's being good, but like good for his planet, not for ours.
Can I say something? Can I say something that's already been revealed in the show?
What's that?
Well, when he goes into the Flaxen dimension, he says a line that might give you a hint to whether you're.
That's what made me think of it. Was when he was saying like, "This isn't your planet" or whatever.
Yeah, this is not your planet to conquer.
Yeah, and so I was like, when he said that, I was like, why would he say it that way?
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, okay, it's his planet. That's my theory. And then I was also thinking like. I don't know. I just thought that would be fascinating if like, because it also makes him a more intriguing villain if he's like kind of doing the best for his planet. Like maybe Earth is just a really good blue marble and like, there aren't that many environments that like his people can do well in. And like, especially if he's like Superman and they get these like excellent powers near the sun, like if you think about it, like, in Superman's world, if Krypton were around, like, why wouldn't they want to take over Earth? Because, like, that's just my theory. I don't know. I don't want to know if I'm right, but that's my theory.
Okay, because
that's where the plot feels like it just feels like a Kirkman move if that's where they went.
Here's what I want to suggest. We should do one of these every Friday after we watch the new drop. because or at least this should be part of our after party.
Yeah, we'll
Mondays.
just talk about this on Mondays because I'm going to be watching it, and then if I haven't watched it yet or you haven't watched it yet, we can talk about something else, But yeah, that sounds fun.
Because I already know if they're true to the comic, I already know everything that's going to happen. I don't necessarily know the order that they're going to do it in, but like Alan the alien, the one-eyed Cyclops guy that shows up in space, like the Flaxens, even the fight over Amber at school with that one guy, his best friend being gay and kind of being his wingman, like that is all clearly laid out in the comics. Like they are not deviating from source material so far in the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
So like for me,
knowing Kirkman again, they might totally go in a different direction because Kirkman did that with Walking Dead just to be like, yeah, it's different than the comic.
They could. I hope they don't because it is so good.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be a shame because like I want fan service and I want what I want. It would be a shame because
it's just so well written.
The comic is incredibly well written. I almost to the point where like if you made a different storytelling choice, I feel like you'd be doing a disservice to it. Like there's a few things that they've done in timing and placement of some of the events that I feel like helped the story a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's still built out of the same building blocks. But if you like, if all of a sudden like Adam Eve was evil or something, or Rexplode was not a total douchebag, like I feel like it would kind of like start to fall apart. I don't know.
Love it.
Maybe that's me. So, but yeah, but anyway, I'm super interested in talking to you and my wife about it because I love that you guys have no idea where it's going.
Yeah.
And you have interesting insights on what might happen.
Because I just like, I've always like, this is one of the things that like the boys lays out pretty well,
Yeah.
Like, which I think is probably derivative, but it is always a fascinating idea of like, if there were actually Superman, like why would
they be good?
Yeah, like why would he even view himself as human?
Have you read Indestructible or Irredeemable?
No.
Oh, okay. Because Irredeemable and Invincible both came out before The Boys.
Oh, okay.
And Irredeemable is about Superman. Basically, it's about a Superman character.
Yeah.
Who is good, but then just one day is just sick of it and just destroys everything. And there's like a scene where there's a bunch of his like former coworkers, his former partners or whatever. And he's just murdering everyone in the city just because he basically snaps and loses it. And he's got a scene where there's this guy who's a powered person, but underpowered compared to this guy, the Plutonian, I think his name is. And he's like, why are you doing this? And he's like, choose who lives and who dies. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm going to kill half of this crowd. You choose which half I save. And so then he he goes in and he chooses one half to save, and that's the half that guy kills. So he had all these reasons. He's like, I'm gonna save him because they're, like young and they've got children and blah, blah, blah. And so he kills all the people that the guy chose to save. And then
crazy.
he said, that's what it feels like to be me. I can't be everywhere, but I can hear everything. And I can't save everyone. And I know the people that I'm not saving, And so like he was basically driven mad by being Superman and not being able to be good enough. And so he flips the tables on it and just is now the most overpowered supervillain ever, to the point where all of the supervillains are like teaming up with the rest of the superheroes just to take this one guy out and completely failing at it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a great plot point. You know what's funny is Chris Ware actually has some short comics where he messes with that too. Yeah, where it's like just like this sort of id type character that that is like a Superman type, but he's just like wandering around like doing terrible things because he's human, you know?
Right.
And then like he'll like fly to Mars and get depressed or something. It's pretty interesting.
That's funny.
But dude, I love it. That's very exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Anyway, I love Invincible. It's one of my favorite comics, and I've been meaning to reread it, but it's so freaking big.
Yeah.
It's just like one of these days. I mean, we'll cover it on the IRS at some point, but I don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty hard with like series that have ran for a long time to kind of even open that can of worms, because it's like, how much do you cover? And
yeah.
I
almost think covering the cartoon might be easier.
Excuse me. Whew, right. Allergies.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, I don't know, but yeah, Invincible. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it, because Prime is one of those things like I don't pay as much attention to.
I never check it.
And then I'm always pleasantly surprised by it, because I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty good, you know? So,
yeah. Yeah, I feel like Netflix is in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they're the.
I do love Umbrella Academy.
I haven't watched it yet.
So good.
I did start to watch.
I mean, it's funny because it's very Mignola influenced. You know,
is it?
Yeah, I mean, like the whole aesthetic of it is very similar. Like Gerard Way's, like his writing style is very like Mignola-ish in the.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, thematically and art-wise too, it's usually pretty similar.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I started watching Deadly Class, which is Kevin was saying that's very similar to Umbrella Academy, but I don't know much. Don't know much about Umbrella Academy.
I have yet to see it, but Remender is pretty awesome writer, so
it's very good. I like the comic a lot better, but I think because it would be really hard. I think it would have done better as an animation.
Yeah. You should check out Umbrella Academy though, because I'm impressed by it. I'm actually impressed by it, how well they could pull it off. It's almost like the way I wish they did an X-Men series.
Oh, interesting.
You know, which, you know, makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I'm gonna head upstairs.
Yeah, I think I'm done too. I got my panel done for the night. We did our indie review show, and you need rest, sir. So it's been a week.
Oh man, yeah, we'll go tomorrow. See if I'll get some X-rays and see if I have a cracked rib or not.
Oof.
And if I don't, then I'm just old.
Well, I've had times where I thought I did, and it was just like massively bruised. But regardless, it's like almost a similar pain.
Right, and I mean, what the guy was saying is he's like the treatment for bruised and cracked is the same. It's broken where you have the real, you know, like you worry about like it wandering around and puncturing organs and stuff.
Yeah, you should check that just to make sure.
Yeah, if it was broken, I wouldn't be able to.
You probably wouldn't be talking right now. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's a significant one. So.
Anyway. Right.
Yeah. Thanks for.
But then again, Cory, with you and your tolerance for pain, it might very well be broken. So go check.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm questioning my tolerance for pain with this one, because I like getting up is. I mean, it's pretty painful. So.
Yeah, it sucks. When it comes to like back and like ribs, there's certain like tender areas I think most people have, just like you have crazy nerve endings, and it's just brutal. So yeah, go check it out. Thanks to people who are on our Patreon. If you've watched this far, we appreciate it. And yeah,
cool. End it.